Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and last time I animated the capture of Knoxville and Cumberland Gap during the East Tennessee Campaign. Now, Confederate General James Longstreet enters the region, attempting to dislodge Ambrose Burnside. Once Union Major General Ambrose Burnside captured Knoxville and a good section of East Tennessee, he set about expanding his reach, but Confederate forces in southwest Virginia blocked many of his pushes east. Confederate Major General Samuel Jones used what available soldiers he had in the region to hold off Burnside. One of these brigades was under the command of Brigadier General William Grumble Jones. Jones had been a part of many of the major campaigns of the Army of Northern Virginia, serving under famed cavalry commander Jeb Stuart, but the two butted heads on numerous occasions. After the Gettysburg Campaign, Jones was sent away from Lee's army. Now he would perform service in southwest Virginia and East Tennessee. In early November, one of Burnside's brigades, under Colonel Israel Garrard, occupied the town of Rogersville, Tennessee, guarding one of the main approaches from southwest Virginia to Knoxville. Jones and Colonel Henry Giltner's brigade planned to eliminate the Union threat. Garrard, hearing that Giltner's men were approaching, positioned his brigade northeast of the town in preparation for an attack. Jones was south of the Holston River, while Giltner remained on the north side. Jones crossed at Long Shoals and passed in front of Giltner, making it to a road that ran parallel to the road on which Giltner's men traveled. On November 6, 1863, under the cover of darkness, Jones and Giltner maneuvered down the roads toward the Union brigade. Garrard was expecting Giltner, but not Jones. When Giltner engaged with the Union forces across the creek, gaining their attention, Jones's brigade maneuvered past the Union left flank. As Garrard and Giltner battled, Jones swept down behind the Union brigade. The Union soldiers were now caught in a crossfire. In a panic, Garrard's men either surrendered or ran for their lives over the creek. Jones and Giltner gathered up over 800 prisoners, 4 artillery pieces, 2 stands of colors, 60 wagons, and 1,000 horses, with only about a dozen casualties sustained. It was an incredible victory for Jones and Giltner. As the Battle of Rogersville took place, Confederate Lieutenant General James Longstreet traveled north from Chattanooga. The Army of Tennessee commander Braxton Bragg wanted rid of the Corps commander and sent him to deal with Burnside in Knoxville. Longstreet's journey through East Tennessee was an arduous one. The Corps commander suffered from a lack of wagons and supplies as they marched along the muddy roads through towns occupied by sometimes violent Unionists. Major General Joseph Wheeler and his cavalry joined the struggling Longstreet in his attempt to capture Knoxville. Longstreet dispatched Wheeler to the south side of the city as the rest of the Corps attempted to capture part of Burnside's command at Lenore Station. Longstreet was unable to land a strong blow against his Union counterpart at that location because Burnside had pulled his troops back and performed a solid withdrawal toward a vital railroad junction named Campbell Station. As the rebels approached Burnside's position, the 6th Indiana Cavalry engaged with the 6th Georgia Cavalry on the Kingston Road. Colonel William Humphrey placed the 17th Michigan to the west side of the creek and the rest of his brigade to the east. After a short engagement, the Hoosiers fell back, performing a fighting withdrawal, buying Burnside time. Likewise, Humphrey's men, overwhelmed by the numbers of Confederates, withdrew to a hill where the Michiganders prepared to defend the road. The blue troops piled up rails to protect themselves, but more and more of Micah Jenkins's division was coming up the road. Branton's South Carolinians made contact with Humphrey and began to work their way around the left flank of the Union brigade. Colonel Huntington Smith of the 20th Michigan sat atop his horse as bullets whizzed by. One passed over his horse's neck, and Smith stated, "That is getting pretty close." The next bullet smashed into his own head, toppling him from his horse. Humphrey ordered the 17th Michigan to charge and drove the South Carolinians away from his flank. The stunned men from the Palmetto State attempted to regroup as the Michiganders were recalled. Humphrey knew that another fresh brigade was coming to reinforce Branton in his front, so he fell back again to a third position, with the help of some men from Hartramp's command and David Morrison's brigade. Jenkins again attempted to outflank the Union position by deploying Anderson's Georgians to the far right of the line. The 36th Massachusetts and the 8th Michigan wheeled to the left to deliver a deadly enfilading fire into the Georgians. The surprise attack on their flank brought the attack to a halt and ultimately forced them to fall back. Again, Longstreet's troops were halted. Burnside was ahead of the rear guard, making preparations for the next stand. This time, the Union troops would hold the ground near the Concord Road. The ground was unusually open, which gave the Union artillery a beautiful field of fire desired by any commander of the war. Burnside reinforced his lines and held a good number of troops in reserve, so he could rush them to the flanks if they came under threat. When Longstreet's men approached, they intended to overlap the Union defenders' flanks. Seeing the right flank in possible jeopardy, the 29th Massachusetts was dispatched to help the 2nd Michigan in their stand on the extreme right. Confusion ran through the Confederate battle line, however. Longstreet wanted both Lafayette McLaws and Micah Jenkins to use their divisions to flank the Union position on either side. Humphrey's Mississippians on the left advanced to the extreme left and threatened the Union flank and rear, but were held off by Union reinforcements. It was passing into the late afternoon, and neither McLaws nor Jenkins had made a significant push to turn the Union flank. The accounts vary on who advised the next movement. Evander Law claimed that he suggested it to Jenkins, and Jenkins claimed that he conceived of the idea. Nevertheless, George T. Anderson, Law, and Henry Benning were to hit the Union left flank. When the brigades got into position, Jenkins thought Law was not far enough forward, that he was going to hit the Union front rather than the rear, so he called off Anderson's advance and ordered Law in alone. However, Burnside was watching this movement of troops carefully and was already preparing to pull his men back to another position. With one brigade to guard against any pursuers, Burnside's men pulled back again. Longstreet regrouped his infantry and artillery to begin the pursuit again. Although some infantry had engaged, this fight was mostly between Burnside and Longstreet's artillery. When the Confederates made it to the site of Burnside's next stand, the Union guns were again trained on the approaching rebels. Longstreet again tried to outflank Burnside, sending Benning and Law to the right, but a heavy artillery bombardment stopped them, although the rebel skirmish line did get close enough to fire shots on the blue troops. By this point, it was growing dark, and a light drizzle made the cold weather miserable on the pursuers. Burnside again pulled back. The Battle of Campbell Station was over. Burnside lost 31 killed, 211 wounded, and 76 missing for a total of 318. McLaws never reported his casualties, but Jenkins did. He reported 174 men as casualties, but a good estimate for Longstreet's losses is about the same as Burnside's. Longstreet had missed a great opportunity to deal a decisive blow against Burnside before the Union commander found safety in the fortifications of the city. Burnside performed the withdrawal from Lenore Station masterfully, forcing Longstreet to expend lots of energy and pulling him further and further away from Braxton, Bragg, and Chattanooga.